Hey YouTube, Ed here with Jack of All Trades, and welcome back to another video. So we're going to do something a little different today, something that I haven't done yet on this channel. We are actually going to install a stock onto a firearm, and I'm going to show you how to do it. And I'm going to explain why I'm doing this particular one in just a little bit. But this is something I haven't done. Now you'll remember my Ruger American Predator video with the 6.5 Creedmoor. I did restock that, but I didn't really show you how to do it. I kind of fast forwarded through it. YouTube really doesn't like it when you do gunsmithing videos, if you will. And I don't liken this to gunsmithing. These things are very drop-in. There's very little that you have to do to make these things, to put these stocks on these guns. But they do consider it gunsmithing, and they probably aren't going to like this video. So at any rate, I've kind of avoided this, but this particular stock as a service to you guys is a little different, and it's different in that it's a Ruger American, so you have those pillar blocks that you have to install, and we're doing it on a Boyd's laminate custom stock. Now why this is different is because with these stocks you actually have to bed those pillar blocks in there, and I'll show you how to do that. So there's a process to it, and I'm going to show you that process. Now, understand, Boyd's is not paying me to do this. I haven't contacted them in any way, shape, or form, and I'm getting nothing out of this other than being able to produce another video for the channel. I've probably installed a couple dozen Boyd stocks on various firearms, and they just always fit, and they're always a really good product, and I've had nothing but good things to say about Boyd's. If I do have to make a gripe, because nobody's perfect, Boyd's included, I would say there's two things that I'm really not too horribly pleased about with Boyd's. One, if you try to call them, it can oftentimes be difficult to get a human being on the other end of the phone. If you've got a question or a concern or you're having a problem, it can be difficult to get somebody to pick up the phone on the other side. Oftentimes you get an answering service and you have to leave a message, and it might be a while before they call you back. Or you can just be a persistent bastard like I am and just keep calling them over and over and over again, and eventually they will pick up the phone. The other thing I might have a gripe about, and they've actually made an improvement on this in years of late, is their website can be a little tricky to navigate. The navigation has gotten much better, but there are some things that if you haven't done this before and you don't take your time and actually read everything on the web page, there's a very real possibility that you could get the wrong stock. And it says right on there, Boyd's is not responsible for misordering. So you need to be very diligent in reading everything before you push the order button to make absolutely sure that you are getting the right stock for your firearm. And I'm actually going to show you that. I'm going to take you to the computer. We're going to go onto the Boyd's website, and we're actually going to order a gun or order a stock for this gun so you understand what I'm talking about. Enough talking. Let's get over to the computer. Let's take a look at the Boyd's website, and then let's relocate the camera to the bench and let's get this thing installed.
All right, so if you do a Google search, if you search Boyd's in Google, this is the splash page that it's going to bring you to. So I'm going to really fly through this for the sake of time. But the first thing you're going to have to do, obviously, is you're going to have to go here and you're going to have to select your make, model, and form of action. So since we're doing a Ruger American, let's go ahead and select Ruger. Let's scroll down to the American. Now you can see you have a bunch of American options. You have a centerfire Predator, the Ranch, and your various 22s. If you don't have the Predator, it won't say Predator on the box. If you don't have the Ranch, it won't say Ranch on the box. So the rifle we have is the Ruger American centerfire. So that's what we'll select. It's going to take a second here to think about it. Now we have to select our type of action. Now obviously you should know if you have a left or right-handed rifle, it's where it's a short action or a long action that may need some describing. Your long actions are basically anything that gets over 308. Your 270s, your 280s, your 30-06s, anything like that, all the way up to 300 Win Mag. Those are all your long action calibers. Your short action calibers are going to be 308 and below. Your 308s, your 243s, your 223s, your 222s, things of that effect. Those are all going to be short action. 300 Blackout, 6.5 Grendel, all of those short action calibers that you can get in the Ruger American. So we're going to select short action because we're dealing with a 308 and we have the detachable magazine. We're going to click go. I'm going to try and be quick for the sake of time. This is where you go through and you select the shape of the stock that you want. It gives you a little picture here. It gives you a rudimentary silhouette. Let's just grab the Prairie Hunter for the sake of discussion here. That's a stock that I happen to like. And then you go through and you can pick your options. You can pick your wood, your finish, your length of pull. You can scroll over here and you can select your laser engraving to select any checkering you may want. I'll let you explore this. What I really want to show you is one thing, and that's right here. Center to center of the action screws for a short action is 4 3/64 of an inch. If you screw this up, Boyd's won't take it back because you ordered it. So make damn sure that you measure your action screws to verify that they're going to fit this. You'll see that if you go to the long action, it'll be like 37/64, so it's closer to half of an inch, whereas this is actually just a little bit over 4 inches. So just verify that you are getting the right center to center on your action screws, because if you do screw it up, Boyd's will not take it back. But please, please, please do not ignore the fine print right here. Read it so that you understand it. Also, not compatible with 7.62 by 39 caliber. Make sure you read all of this stuff, because if you screw it up, Boyd's will not take it back. You ordered it. You're expected to read this stuff. Now, if there's a flaw in the workmanship or something like that, that's a different story. But this is all you. So make sure you're ordering the right thing. All right. With that, let's shut her down and let's go install this stock.
Okay, let's talk about what you get with your stock. You're going to get your sticker. You're going to get a set of instructions. Do not ignore these instructions. I'm going to follow the instructions as best I can, step by step, but do not ignore these instructions. Make sure that you read the instructions in their entirety from front to back so you understand it before you jump into this and start actually doing the job. So you're going to get your instructions. You're going to get a packet kit with ProBed 2000. This is the bedding material that you're going to use to bed the V-blocks with. Then you're going to get a small Ziploc bag with a bunch of parts in it. And in this Ziploc bag, you're going to get a trigger guard, because you're going to need that. You're going to get your 2 V-blocks, which you need, obviously. You're going to get a wood screw for your trigger guard. You're going to get 2 action screws. One is long, one is short. The short one goes in the front. It's in the front action screw. The long one is the rear action screw. Then you're going to get 2 small pieces of plastic. These pieces of plastic are actually your magazine catches. There's a long action one and a short action one. They haven't taken the time to just provide you the one you need. They have them both in the bag, and they just grab a bag off the shelf and add it to the box. So how do you determine which one is your short action and which one is your long action? If you look here, you can see the lettering on there, and there is AFCL. That's your long action. This one is AFCS. That's for short action. The other way that you can tell if this is your short action or your long action is the short action actually has a bit of a lip on it, or a little ledge. The long action one does not have that ledge. All right? So that's how you can tell the difference. So when you're ordering your stock, you can get these magazine tabs in a metal instead of this plastic. They're $10. Doesn't matter if it's a short action or a long action, but you can get them in a metal. You can also upgrade your trigger guard if you want to. If you're not comfortable with the plastic ones, you can always, plastic magazine catches, you can always order metal magazine catches for an additional $10. Again, I have not had a problem with the plastic ones, but I mean, they are plastic after all. So just take that into account. Now, the first thing that you're going to want to do on this thing is you're going to want to do a dry fit. You don't want to go right into the bedding. You want to make sure that everything fits on this stock from your rifle. So quite obviously, the first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to disassemble the old rifle. So let's take all these parts. Careful not to lose any of them. Set the stock aside, and let's go ahead and let's take this rifle apart. This is very, very simple to do. Obviously, the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that the gun is unloaded, and then I always just remove the bolt. That helps to further verify that the firearm is safe. Then go ahead and remove the magazine. Set that aside. 4.5 millimeters. That's how big of an Allen wrench you need. And remove these 2 action screws. There's one here and there's one here. So you just got to remove those 2 action screws. Once those 2 action screws have been loosened up, you can put all of this aside. You don't need the old stock, you don't need anything off of it, and you don't need these 2 action screws. I wouldn't throw these away. If you should happen to break your wood stock, you could always have this as a backup and still at least use your rifle until you get a replacement. Okay, so now we've got everything taken apart that we need to. Now we just basically have to do a dry fit on this thing. So let's take the new stock. And the first thing that the instructions tell you to do on the new stock is to fit the trigger guard. So you take your new trigger guard, you set it in there like that. Now you can see that this trigger guard's got a high spot and a low spot. It's not perfectly square or even. The fatter part always goes to the back. Okay? Then you take your wood screw, which is a 5/32 Allen screw. They've pre-drilled the hole in the wood for you already, so all you have to do is set it in there. Now we don't have to torque these down to full torques, we just need to snug everything up. Okay, so we've installed our trigger guard. And let's go step by step in the instructions. What's the next thing that the instructions tell us to do? It tells us to flip the stock over and set in the V-blocks. So now we have to install the V-blocks or the lugs. Now this V-block here, that's your front V-block, and it actually fits right in there. They've got little notches cut out, and it just sets right into place. You can't miss it. This V-block, you can see right here, has got a little bit of a ledge on it. So we have to make sure we have to get the ledge on this in the right direction. And that little ledge needs to go towards the magazine opening, so the flat part of the lug goes up against the wood, just like this. So you can see this rear lug is flat up against the wood. The little ledge right here is facing the magazine well. This lug fits in there just like that. Now you take your barreled action and you just go ahead and set it in there. And all you're doing is making sure that everything fits into the machining slots. You just want to kind of feel it, and you can feel when it sets down in there. Now this one's set down in there just like it should. Then you can take and make sure you hold on to this, and you can flip it over. And just make sure that everything fits in there like it's supposed to, and it does. Now, the next step is to go ahead and secure the barreled action, and you kind of have to hold on to it with your action screws. So remember, the long action screw goes back on the back part towards the trigger guard. If it doesn't start easy, you're cross-threading, so don't force it. And just lightly snug it up, don't get crazy with it. Now the front one, this is where the magazine catch comes into place. You have to install your magazine catch. Now that little ledge, or that little lip, has got to go down, because that's what's actually catching the magazine. And I'm not getting stupid tight with this. I'm just snugging things up. I'm putting just light finger pressure on it. Now what you want to do is make sure that the magazine is going to go in and out like it should, and click into place. So you can see that this magazine isn't actually latching. It's the catch is actually too deep in the wood. What I would do on this is you need to put something on the back side of that magazine catch to build it up so that the magazine actually latches correctly. There's a number of ways you can do it. My preferred way, or the way that I like to do it, is I'll take some either paper or some masking tape, and I will build up the back side of the magazine catch to raise it up just a little bit, because it doesn't need much. It's really, really close. I'll just put some masking tape or cut out some paper shims and shim the bottom side of this catch so that it raises it up a little bit to bring it off of the wood. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken my magazine catch and I've built up a couple of layers of masking tape. There's actually 5 layers of masking tape on there. Set that back in there. Go ahead and just run the action screws down. Just light pressure. Do a test on the magazine, and now the magazine functions as it should. It's just had to come up a little bit to get that catch. Okay, so now we've got the front catch working as it should. Now I've got another fitting issue, whereas if I go inside here and I push, I can move the magazine around. I'll give you a better view of it here. The magazine is a little loose. The catch isn't quite tight. And for me, that's not good enough. It probably would function the ammo just fine, and you could do an ammo function check at this point, but I'm going to get that slop out of there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the gun back apart again, and I'm going to make some spacers on this rear V-block or lug, which is where the back magazine catches on, to snug that up just a little bit, because I don't like that. Alright, so the way this magazine works is you can see there's a little protrusion right there. That little protrusion actually catches right there on that V-block. So when you stick the magazine up in here, that little protrusion is supposed to catch that V-block and keep it from moving. And you can see it's a little loose in there. So that V-block has got to come up. So what I've done, or what I've got, is I've got a really small washer here that I've drilled the hole out to the right size, and then I made a flat spot on the back side, so when I take this V-block out, I can set that washer in there just like that, with the flat side facing the wood, and that's going to bring that V-block up just a little bit. And then what I've also done too is I've built up a few layers of tape on the back side of the V-block, so this is actually going to go up and against the wood, and that'll push the V-block towards the front of the gun just a little bit to make everything fit just nice and tight and snug the way it should. So let's go ahead and let's set the action back in here, and let's run those screws down, and then we're going to do another check on the magazine to see how the magazine fits into the well. Alright, so now we've got it snugged back up. The washer's in place. I've got everything shimmed the way I want it shimmed. The magazine still catches appropriately, and it barely even wiggles. There's a little bit of wiggle, but not much, and that's going to be good enough. You don't want it so tight that it's hard to get the magazine in and out, but you just don't want it so loose that it doesn't feed properly. And everything goes in nice and easy. It comes out easy. Should be all right. So now that we know the magazine is working correctly, everything fits the way it should, and now we know that the gun is ready to bed. and we can bed those V-blocks into place. Alright, so in the bedding kit that you get from Boyd's, you get 3 packets. One is a releasing wax or a mold release wax, also known as a release agent. You need that. One is the curing agent and one is the resin. These are the 2 packets that you mix together to make your bedding material. Put those to the side, you don't need those right now. The mold release wax is exactly that. You want to apply this everywhere on the gun that may come in contact with the bedding material. And here's why. If you bed this and you don't put any kind of release agent on there, and some of the epoxy gets on any portion of the gun other than the V-blocks, it could literally stick the gun together and you'll never get it apart. So you're going to need to bed the action of the gun as well as the action screws of the gun to make damn sure that you're able to get this thing back apart once the bedding agent has set. Alright, so I got the action apart. I've got my release wax. I always like to knead the packets. It doesn't say you have to for the release agent, but I like to do it anyway just to make sure that all the contents of the packets are thoroughly mixed. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to open this up, and I just use a scissors. You don't have to. They put little tear points in there for you, but I'm a little type A and I like to use the scissors. Then I just take a paper towel and I use this as kind of an applicator. Put some release agent on the paper towel. And then you want to coat everywhere on the gun that you don't want to stick. So I'm going to put release agent absolutely everywhere. And if it gets in the holes, fine, let it. And you're not going to ruin the gun finish with this release agent, so you can be extremely liberal on how much of it you put in there. Get all the way around the action here. Also, make sure that you get some around the trigger mechanism here, because you don't want to be sticking trigger parts either, and this can all be cleaned up later. So once I've got it all wiped on there, then I'm going to wipe it off to a thin layer. I just want to make sure I'm coating absolutely everything, and I'm going to go way up on the barrel here. If I get it in the hole of the threads, I don't care. I actually want that in the hole of the threads. Anywhere you could possibly get bedding agent, you want to have release agent. Have I said that enough times? I sure hope so. So now I've got the release agent on there. And then you just let it sit for a few minutes, and then you kind of buff it off. So now we'll set that aside. All right, now it's been a few minutes. Now I'm going to take a clean paper towel and I'm going to buff it shiny. It's kind of like the instructions say, it's kind of like waxing a car. So think of it like you're waxing a car. They say use a clean soft cloth. I find a paper towel works just fine. And when you're all done with this, you can clean after you're done bedding the gun and you take it apart, you can clean all this off with any kind of a petroleum solvent. The instructions say paint thinner works particularly well, and they are correct. Paint thinner does work very well, because that's what I've used in the past. Okay, so that was coat 1. You're going to repeat that process 2 to 3 more times to make darn sure that you've got a good even coating of release agent on there. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to recoat and rebuff this no less than 2 more times, just to make real sure that we've got enough release agent on there so we don't stick the gun. Now that I've got the release agent applied to the metal parts, now one more thing we have to do to prep is all the surfaces where there's going to be bedding compound coming in contact with the stock. We want to make sure that none of the finish is adhered to that. The bedding compound will stick to damn near anything. I mean, it's really tough stuff. But if you want to get maximum adheration to your V-blocks and the stock, you want to make sure that all the finish has been removed that you possibly can. So I'm just going to take some sandpaper and I'm going to run through all these surfaces, and I'm just going to try and do my best to remove all the finish. You can also do something like maybe take a small screwdriver and just scrape the finish off. Anything you can do to just make sure that there is no finish stuck to the wood where you want to adhere the V-blocks, because you wouldn't think it would hinder the adheration of the V-blocks and the bedding material, but why risk it? And it certainly wouldn't hurt to put in some gouges into the wood, because it's all going to get filled up with bedding anyway. So you just want to make sure that you've got a good prepped surface. You don't want to mess too much down in here, because this is where the V-blocks are going to sit into. So you don't want to mess too much there or get real aggressive. Just kind of scrape the finish off. Same with this channel in here. And then with this channel here, you want to just, again, don't get crazy aggressive, but just make sure you scrape the finish off, because there is some finish there and you can actually feel it. And then you could take the corner of the screwdriver and cut some marks in here to give you some more surface area, and just get as much of the finish off as you possibly can. All right, now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little acetone and I'm going to clean off the V-blocks themselves, just to get any residual oils or anything like that off. Again, we don't want to hinder the bedding material from sticking to the V-blocks. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to wipe the V-blocks down with a little acetone, just to make sure that they've got all the chance in the world of sticking like they're supposed to. So now it's time to mix up the epoxy and get it ready to do the bedding process. Now, if you read the instructions do actually say to knead the packets, because they will separate over time. So make sure you knead the packets really well. Make sure that nothing is separated in there and you get everything all nice and mixed up. Okay, once you got the packets kneaded and you've got the contents of the packets mixed, you can go ahead and start mixing your epoxy. Now, the instructions say to empty the entire contents of the 2 packets onto a piece of cardboard or something like that. I don't know if you can do less. I don't know why really you'd want to, but I don't know if you can do less or not. So I've always just done exactly like the directions say and empty the entire contents. So this is the curing agent. Try and get as much of it out of the packet as possible. It does say the entire contents of the packet. Okay. Now it says to thoroughly mix until the mixture is the color of the picture in the window there, the color of the resin. So we're going to go ahead and mix this up. Now you can mix this up with a popsicle stick, you can mix this up with a putty knife, you can use pretty much anything you want, flat stick, whatever. Just thoroughly get everything mixed up. Make sure you scrape the cardboard, get everything off the cardboard so it all gets incorporated into the mixture really, really well. Okay, we've got the epoxy mixed up and we're ready to go. So now what we want to do is we want to take just a really small amount of the bedding material and just kind of put a really thin light coat on the wood. Uh, this just helps to make sure we've got good adherence to the wood itself. The instructions call it wetting. That's a valid point, or it's a valid term, because you're just basically wetting the surface of the wood with the bedding material to make sure that you have a good solid stick to the wood. So just a really light coat of the bedding onto the wood surfaces. Okay, now we'll put some on the rear one. Now if you remember correctly, I had this little washer that I want to put in here to help with my spacing. So I'm going to put that in here now. Use my screwdriver to just kind of push it down into place. That's going to become a permanent part of the stock from now on. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little more epoxy in here. Now you don't have to get crazy with this. You're not going to use all the epoxy they give you, not even close. They give you enough epoxy here to do a lot of bedding. We're not going to use nearly all of it. So now I'm going to put some more epoxy in here, make sure I've got enough material in here so that when I push the V-block down in here, it kind of squeezes out a little bit. Okay, that should be enough for the front one. Now we're going to take the front V-block. We're just going to set it down in there and just push it down in, and you can see some of the epoxy is squeezing out. That's good. That means we've got enough in there. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a little more epoxy on the rear. This one you don't want to get too overly generous with, because some of the squeeze out is going to go into the magazine well, and that's fine. We can clean it out after the fact, but you don't want so much epoxy and bedding material in here that you have excessive amounts of cleanup. You need enough in there to fill the gaps and the voids, but you just don't want to be scraping a lot of this out of here. This stuff is quite messy, and yeah, you just want to keep it to a minimum. So now I'm going to go ahead and take this V-block, push it into place like so. Now I've got some squeeze out already, so what I'm going to do before I get too far along is while I can reach it from the top here, clean off my spatula, and I'm going to clean out some of that squeeze out from up here. All right. That should do it. So now I'm going to take my action, which has been covered in release agent and buffed off 3 times. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to lightly set it in here. And then I'm going to take, and holding the gun and the action and the wood together, I'm going to take and I'm going to flip it over. Make sure that those V-blocks get lined up where they should. There we go. I'm going to get my rear takedown screw. Take a little release agent. Squeeze it out of the packet. And I'm going to put some release agent on the threads and up the shaft of the screw a little bit, because I want to make sure that the action screws also do not get stuck in there. Get my Allen wrench. I'm just going to snug up the rear one. It's not tight by any means. Now I've got some squeeze out in the action screw hole here. So I'm just going to take and I'm going to clean that out of there as best I can. Put in my magazine catch. Take more release agent, put it on the front action screw. Make sure that that screw is well coated. And again, I'm not running these in super tight, I'm just snugging them up. Now that I've got everything snugged up and it's all in place, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try and clean out as much of the excess bedding material as I possibly can while it's still wet and I'm still able to do so. Alright, so once I've got everything screwed down and everything has been cleaned up and everything like that, I like to just really quickly make sure that my magazine still catches as it should. And it does. It hooks like it's supposed to, and then I'm going to immediately remove it. Look at it. I don't have any bedding material on my magazine, so that means that I've got nothing that's going to hinder the operation of my magazine. So I'm confident there that I'm all right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the gun and I'm going to set it upright just like it should, and I'm going to leave it sit. And I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to let it go. And in a couple of hours, I'm going to come back out here and I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to make sure I can still break the screws loose. And I'm going to do that a couple of times over the next 2 to 4 hours. So this isn't something that you want to do right before you go to bed or when you're on your way out the door to work, because you're going to want to babysit this just a little bit. Like I said, I just like to make sure that I can still back the screws out at least, and as long as I can continually get the screws out or back them off, it should be all right. So 2-3 hours, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna eat some supper, and then I'm gonna come back out in 2 or 3 hours and I'm gonna check those screws, make sure I can still move those screws, and if I can, everything should be fine, and then we can go ahead and we can let it sit overnight. The cure time should be approximately 14 to 16 hours. You've got a really good indicator here because you have all this leftover epoxy, and if that's hard, you're safe to remove it out of the action or out of the stock. So let's go ahead and let's just let this sit and let it cure up a little bit, and we'll come check it in about 2 or 3 hours. All right, so we're next day. The leftover bedding on the cardboard is thoroughly hard. It's fully cured. It's not soft on the backside, so I know the stock is also cured. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring the camera back over here. We're going to release the gun mechanism from the stock itself, inspect our work, take care of any cleanup, and finish up this installation. Okay, like I said, the bedding is good and hard. It's good and cured. So I know this is done as well. We're going to take and we are going to just flip this over. We are going to remove the front action screw. Also remove the rear action screw. Now you'll remember, like I told you yesterday, I came out about 3 hours later and all I did was I just came out and I just cracked it loose and tightened it back up again just to make sure that the action screws weren't being bedded into the action, and they weren't. They came out, or they backed off very easily. So now just work it off, and it came out actually very, very easily. It came out very easily. A lot of times, if you get a lot of bedding in there, you may have to take and insert the bolt and use the bolt as a bit of a lever and kind of work it out. But since we only bedded the V-blocks, it wasn't in there super tight. So now when we take a look at this, we can take a look at our work. I don't see any occlusions. I see that the bedding looks very, very good, and we should be just fine. We should be just fine with this. So let's take this camera over and let's take a look at it. Okay, you can see that the bedding has come up over the top of the V-block here. It's filled in voids here. It looks like it's come through the sides here and it's filled up everything very, very nicely. So these blocks are bedded in there and they are not going anywhere. They are nice and solid in place. So we know we know the bedding is good. And this should be all set and ready to go. So now all we have to do is put the gun back together. We're going to throw a scope on it for the guy so he's got it, and then let him take it to the range and shoot it, and he should be good to go. And there you have it. Full installation of a Boyd's laminate custom gun stock on a Ruger American 308 bolt action rifle. Now, this process should be the same for all the centerfire cartridges, be it long action, short action, 30-06, 308, 243, whatever. The process should be the same. Just make sure that you use the correct magazine catch if you're using a long action, which we discussed earlier. That all being said, the Ruger American is the only platform that I'm aware of with Boyd's where you actually have to bed in the pillars of the V-blocks. All the rest of the Boyd stocks that I have ever installed, and I've installed a bunch of them, have been strictly a drop-in. Quite literally remove the action from the old stock, drop it into the new one, run the action screws home, take it to the range, and re-verify that your zero hasn't changed. And it probably will change. But they've all been purely drop-in applications. Good example is my Marlin 7mm 08. This is the deer rifle that I deer hunt with every year. It's the rifle that's shot every deer I've killed for the last 8 years. And it was purely a drop-in. There was nothing more that I had to do with it. I didn't have to shim it. I didn't have to do nothing. It just fit right into place, and it's done. I'm also going to do a Boyd stock for my daughter's 7mm 08, which is a Savage Access rifle. If you would like to see the video on that, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll make sure that I video that and add that to the channel if you want to see that. But that will be a very short video because it is, again, just a drop-in application. There shouldn't be any bedding or any fancy stuff that you have to do to make that stock fit. With that, this is actually the second one that I've done. I did my neighbor's 6.5 Creedmoor, which was in a Predator version. I put a Boyd stock under his, and I had to bed those V-blocks in as well, so I actually had one under my belt before I went ahead and did this one. So just understand what you're getting into. There is some bedding involved. There is going to be some shimming involved. You may have to do some very minor inletting, and of course you have to remove the finish before you apply the epoxy to bed it. That all being said, the installation actually went very, very well. Everything works. We did a function check on it. You saw it. And everything just worked out lovely, and I'm very, very pleased with how this installation went, and I'm very pleased with Boyd's products in general. I've never had a complaint about a Boyd stock. They've always fit, they've always worked, and they've always been very, very easy to do. So with that, I hope this video was informative for you. I hope you found it enjoyable and at least reasonably entertaining. If you do like this content and you do like what you see here on the Jack of All Trades channel, you'll be doing me a favor by hitting that like and subscribe button down below. Every day I'm getting more and more subscribers, and I very much appreciate that. Give me a thumbs up. Give me some comments. All of that stuff helps the algorithms. If you have questions on anything I did, hit me up in the comments. I really do try hard, if you ask a specific question, to answer all the comments in the comment section. I do my absolute best to try and get that done. May take a day or two, but I do generally get to them and try to answer them as quickly and as accurately as I possibly can. And if I don't know the answer, I'll find out. I'll call Boyd's, or I'll call the company or whatever and find out the answer you need. With that, this is Ed with the Jack of All Trades channel. Thank you again for riding along and watching this video, and we will see you on the next video.